Welcome back, everybody. Now we're going to dive into, after our brief introduction to Namibian TVET, we're going to have a look at the qualification and the units that we're delivering. So you might be able to see down here, there's a little link to unitstandards.nta.com.na, which will take you to the qualification website. We'll give you a bit of a tour in a minute. And we're going to have a look at our qualification we're going to be designing. We're going to download and unpack a unit of competency. And we're going to define all the particular things that we find in a unit of competency. And then we'll look at each in the exemplar unit, which is the one that I wrote. So now I'm going to swap over to the website. So this is the unit standards.nta.com. No, sorry, unitstandards.nta.com.na. Now, you can see there's a whole different collection of qualifications by various industries. And the one that we're in is down here in manufacturing. So if we select that, it will take us to a page that lists, there it is, clothing production. You can see the other qualifications that are in here for other industries. We've got clothing productions. And we talk about the levels. The clothing production goes from 1 right up to level 4. The one we're working on is this one here. And you can download that unit by simply selecting that, and then it'll appear on your computer. Let's have a look at that file. And here it is. So this is the descriptor for this unit this qualification. You can see this is the qualification code. This is the qualification title. Important that we get this very correct in all our documentation so everybody knows what we're talking about. So the level of the qualification is 1, and the total credits available is 910, which leads us to what we might call a volume of learning of 910 hours. When you remember that credits, 1 credit is 1 hour. Qualifications usually break down units in terms of those that are compulsory and those that might be elective. Electives are normally used at a higher level to enable people to specialise or look at specific subtasks within their qualification. So these can be adapted. But in our course, all of our units are compulsory here. And we've got information about who's responsible for the qualification. So see there's the Namibian Training Authority, and they've got a specific committee that looks at qualifications in this particular industry. Now, the purpose is a really good document, part of the document to read, because it sort of talks about what the qualification is attempting to build. So it's talking about the clothing environment, order to people who demonstrate skills and knowledge required to produce a range of different skills. Now that's what someone who trains in this particular unit will come out with all those particular skills. And some of them relate to some of the units that we've got. There's also some additional knowledge about health and safety. And there's one unit about awareness of HIV and AIDS, as well as communication. And there's also some numeracy units in the qualification as well, which will enable a learner to be able to engage with the numeracy and mathematics that might be required in any of these particular tasks. You can imagine looking at that, that numeracy is a big part of all those. And this is saying that this is the pathway somewhere someone can go once they've completed this particular qualification. And they can go to level 2 and do the next unit. They might be employed, they might not be, but once they've completed one, they can go forward. There's some qualification requirements as well. And these are, you've got to demonstrate basic communication skills in the English language and numeracy. Now, I'm not quite sure. I believe that English is perhaps just one of the languages in your country. But the requirement is that they have to study and produce evidence of assessment in English. It's the same here in Australia. We have countries made up of so many different people from various ethnic backgrounds. Some who never learn to speak English. And so often the thing that will stop them from being able to do training is because they've got to demonstrate it in English. So we're going to give this qualification to anybody who's got 91 credits. That's the entire unit. So let's have a look at some of the requirements. So all these units are compulsory. There's no electives at all in this particular unit. So we have fields and we have subfields. It's kind of drill down a bit into the industry type. So you got manufacturing, engineering, and technology. When we drill down to a subfield, then we've got our particular industry, and then we've got a domain, which is clothing production. And so here's the unit overview for the first subfield, which is clothing, leather, and textile manufacturing. These are the 6 units, and these are 5 of the units that you're going to be working on. So you can see they're all level 1, unless they've got various credits. It's not going to take 20 hours for that one, 100 for that one, 200. So you might guess that they involve perhaps more skills that we have to write for. So that's one subfield. The second subfield is preventative health. And we've got a unit there which we'll also pick up as part of this project in the next 3 days. It's at level 1 and 7 credits for that. And then we've got numeracy units, which we contextualize to the clothing industry. Then we've got communication, basic reading, interaction, probably all communication, and being able to work with workplace documents, plans, all sorts of things. They've got a fairly small credit. They're at level 1. And then the final compulsory unit is around HIV and AIDS awareness. It's quite an interesting unit. And that's it. That's the end of the qualification. And there's a bit of information there about the training authority as well. But that's the key to it, just that part there. So let's come back to the website. Once you get to unitstandards.nta.com.au and choose manufacturing, automotive, arts and crafts, you get the list. You can open that and then you download it. You'll get that particular document. Now I've just kind of forgotten how I got to the years. It's interesting. Yeah, there's that document. Okay. So now I've got to remember how I found those units. So we're going to have a look now at how each of these particular aspects of a competency structure or unit are important to what we're doing. So you've got a level, you've got credits, Got purpose, special notes, quality assurance requirements, elements and performance criteria, and range. So I've taken the kind of approach that the elements and performance criteria provide the structure for us, and then we bolt in the range, special notes, and any quality assurance requirements into those topics that relate to that element performance criteria. And so this has just been an overview of what each of those particular things mean when we get to them. So level shows the complexity and learning depth. We're level 1 at the beginning. Credits is the expected learning time, 10 hours per credit hour, including directed and self-directed learning and assessment. The directed would be trainer-led. Self-directed might be activities the learner does in class and or in their own time or with peers. The purpose of the unit of competency summarizes briefly what the unit trains and assesses. And the special notes lists the conditions, rules, tools, or any legal notes, and we'll see them in the mapping in a minute. And quality assurance requirements ensure consistency, validity, and national compliance if you follow the unit of competency. Now we get to the elements and performance criteria, which is kind of the glue that hold the unit together. It breaks down the indicative tasks that this competency is attempting to explain and sets the performance standards expected of a learner to show through training and also assessment. Now, so we don't blow out the scope of the unit and the task the student has to do, we have range statements. And these define the context, the tools, or the performance options. So we're kind of limited, in a sense, to those without getting too overwhelmed by thinking, what level have we got to pitch at? So let's have a look at each of those in an exemplar unit that I created. So let me just get that document up. This is the qualification, and from the qualification, we're now looking at this unit here. This is an exemplar unit that I've created for you to have a bit of a look at and a bit of a model. So 6 credits, there's the purpose of this particular unit. So we're really teaching learners how to produce fashion illustration and technical drawings. It's also about workstation safety, preparation, drawing proportion figures, interpreting sketches, and preparing a portfolio of drawing. So the whole unit standard is intended for people who work in a clothing production environment, not, for example, an engineering environment, engineering drawing. And we've got special notes. So it's saying us here that before you do this unit, you have to have completed these 2 units, demonstrate basic knowledge of workplace health and safety, and follow workplace safety procedures, etc. And then it starts to give you a bit of shape about how you're to think about how you provide some training in this particular unit, and really about assessment evidence, which they're asking us to collect through producing illustrations, designing and producing technical drawings of the skirts and bodices. So it's limited to those 2. It hasn't included things like trousers, coats. And so this gives you a really good guide as to what you should be creating content and assessment for. So it's all about finishing the job, identifying through labeling as well, and then also using various tools and equipment and completing illustrations. So tools and equipment would probably be pencils, that sort of stuff, but we'll never know. Oh, and then we go to the next special note, it actually defines what those particular tools are going to be. You can see sketch pads. So this is material you'd have to introduce to the learner in the learner guide. And so mapping these special notes to performance criteria really help you. And then it's saying, okay, if you're going to get the student to make a garment, then here's some ideas, but you're not necessarily limited when you're talking about skirts and blouses. And then items that might be on that garment includes any of these. It just may include. So you can determine what level you want to go to there. It's not specific, but it's kind of giving you an idea where to think when you're talking about garments and garment items, what that might include. And then in all these units, it also says that you need to participate in health and safety as well and align yourself to the Labour Act of 2007. And you might mention that in passing. That's it. There are special notes, things that guide how the assessment is going to be conducted. Then we've got some quality assurance requirements, which are discussing who can award this particular qualification, and also more information about who's accredited to run it. Now we get to the performance criteria, which outline the observable skills the learner will have to demonstrate to us. So elements like a collection of them, and then a performance criteria is a breakdown of that. So that's the big picture. And then this is a breakdown of the kind of things you want to observe. So I'm preparing workstation equipment. You want to see that workplace is cleaned in line with workplace specifications and occupational health and safety practices, and that appropriate drawing tools and equipment are selected. So we need to talk about those. And workplace specifications may mean something like policies and procedures, depending on the organisation, or if there's some standard. And SMEs will certainly know about those. So we've got a couple more. This one's quite a few. And so you can see we actually look at that element, draw proportion figures. So we've got quite a bit to do in this one. You've got to draw 8 proportional lines of a figure. I went with 9 because it seemed to be more of an industry thing. We're drawing using a thing called a crocus, which I didn't know what it was. Fashion poses are drawn. They then shade the drawings. They dress it with a garment, and they create star lines, which indicate what garment items are going to be put onto the garment. Then you inspect the sketch against quality standards, and then any change or adjustments are carried out if required. So very practical task. So a bit of background knowledge, and then also information about a particular task. This time we've got a range statement. Interpret the sketch and prepare a portfolio. So in the first performance criteria here, it says designs are identified. Right? And then the range is saying, well, identification of those designs, they can use magazines, newspapers, internet, fashion TV, and that a learner might capture them in a mood board. And introducing colour is done through a colour wheel. And so here's some of those coloured, produced and labelled. And then they might create storyboards and mood boards, which are kind of designs in progress. And portfolio is a collection of partially finished or finished items that the learner collects as they produce their work. And then they create a production plan about if my garment was produced, how would I create it? And then they clean the work area up as well. So it's pretty straight-ahead task. I look at this, the first thing I'm thinking, okay, you've got to interpret your sketch, create a portfolio, but first you draw figures that will go in your portfolio. But before you even get started, you have a good understanding of the workstation that you're going to work at and the equipment that you're going to be used. So this is kind of how we start to interpret how this particular unit will be written. And so for an instructional designer, it can be difficult because you don't know what the levels are or the tools or some of the concepts, as I mentioned. But this is why we match you with a SME, because together you'll be able to um, be informed as to what level and what content is appropriate to prepare those learners for a particular job role. So if I look at that, okay, now I've got a learner guide. And so this might be a good opportunity to show you some of the resources I've got for you. So Robert created a folder for me and we put some material in here. So you can see there's a guide to writing learning resources, which may help you. It's just got some ideas around plain language, active voice, structure and organization, terminology, how to deal with that, and other tips for inclusive writing, writing job tasks with some ideas. Basically, there's ideas in here to help you if you need it. A whole range of different things, multimedia, and then writing instructions, they're consistent, and then bring it all together. And they also have some information about working with a subject matter expert, which might be worth having a look at before the two of you work together. Now, part of this process is when we put you in pairs later, you'll prepare for a meeting. And so you look at the competencies together and then confirm this to me whether the understanding of the industry knowledge they share is correct. And then you can get going on the assessment task and also help you once you understand the unit. It'll help you interrogate when AI starts to give you material. So you can ask the SMA to walk you through the context in which the knowledge and skills will be applied. What are the tasks? What are the planning? So understanding the when, why, and how tasks can be as important as the how. Clarify information about equipment and tools. Maybe some manuals. Quite a few of the units discuss using manufacturer's guides for equipment. And then you might have some job aids for performance support. So these are more guides in your learner guide about how to find or use reference materials, safety protocols. Remember to mention organizational procedures, industry frameworks, which are in the unit of competency. And I might just change that. That's better. And complex material. So if material seems really complex to you as a instructional designer, one of the questions you want to ask an SME is, well, how does that information play out for a learner while completing a task of work? Can you break it down into one step at a time with examples that can help you see how that complex material lives? And SME might have a personal experience about that, which you can use as a case study. You know, they might also have ideas about good videos that might support that, but also asking about what we call contingencies is a good one. Asking the SME, well, what are the things workers typically get wrong about this information when working? And so we can close that gap in our training and our learner guide. The other one is guidance about theoretical knowledge. Will always help open conversation about practical applications. So this might mean that your SME can contribute scenarios and simulations that help learners understand why specific procedures are followed and, more importantly, the consequences of not following them. So AI can produce case studies, scenarios, all sorts of things, but sometimes we really do need an SME to verify them and adapt them to make them a little bit more interesting. Okay, so that's the guide, but back to here and let's see if I can get rid of those ticks. There we go. So in here I've got day one, so this is today. And so in there I've got the exemplar unit and then the 3 units you're going to select in a moment and choose to work on. And I've got a schedule for that here as to how you work on that until I get back to you. Here's the exemplar unit. And let's have a look at the mapping to begin with. I've been a bit naughty because I haven't put the code in there. So let me fix that. That's better. So this is the unit, this is the exemplar unit. The instructions there. I've done the mapping for you. You don't need to worry. There's an assessment plan. I haven't completed that, but we'll come back to that at another point, but there's a content plan. And you can see that I've done this quite simply. Yours, I've done a lot more detail. So I've created a topic to kind of contain an element, and then subtopics kind of relate to each of the performance criteria, but they're rewritten just to be a bit more succinct. And then I put the performance criteria in full. And then the special notes I've added where they apply. There's not much range in this unit at all. There's a bit at the end in the last year. So you're going to set up a topic, your subtopics, and then start to write each performance criteria and apply the range and any special notes that apply. And think of activities. It could be knowledge activities or practice tasks that you might go through. So let's see if I can open two at once. So I've got a learner guide down here. So there's the mapping. And there's the learner guide. Oh, looks a bit different now. It gets up to times. So I've got the unit learner guide. I've done this pretty. I didn't have much a lot of time to put these together. So you may have a better template to make it look a little bit more interesting. So you got the learner. Then what you're going to learn in this particular section. And so we've got the first one: clean and set up your workstation safely. And there it is. And that's the performance criteria. In the background, it is addressing. And let's see, what does it mean? And you can see the language is very simple with some key steps. So it's also the formatting that I had in it. If you download it, you'll be able to see it. And then I've got a bit of additional concept about workplace safety and then activity idea. I think this is the latest version. Let's have a look. Oh, sure about this. Oh, yes, it is. I've been missing activity there. That's all right. So about this saying to teacher, I think I actually created a messy workstation. And then we've got a video. So what's this video about 5 core elements in fashion design? Now, I thought this was important for somebody to have before they were able to go on and draw. So it's not actually part of the unit. It's kind of, so you can see I've added it here, fashion elements and fashion design principles. That's okay if you think the unit doesn't quite equip the learner with everything they might need to know to go on and do the next part. And so I've just put a bit of information about watching a video, and you can see how I've actually attributed it. And I've got a QR code the learner can scan to get to that video on YouTube. There's also a picture just with a screen grab, and then we've got a quiz that happens after the the video. So let's see how well you understood the video. Choose the best answer, and then the learner can check the answers in Appendix 1. So which is way down the end. And there's the answers. So they're away from the actual task and ready to go. So element 1 is pretty much around, if you have a look at it, it's only two topics, 2 subtopics, because it's only had 2 performance criteria. So we can do that pretty simply. Oh, that's interesting. I don't think I've got another version of this, but anyway. Oh, I do. I've got a second volume. Let me just pause this for a minute. I'll come back. All right, I put the second version up, the second draft I had. So this might make a bit more sense. So I put a welcome in at the start. This is an AI generated image. I got AI to write this for me. Learning outcomes for the whole unit. AI helped me with that. And then the various topics, their workstation equipment. And I've applied some styles here. So you'll see this in the template. And so it's a bit easier to read this one because it's got some nice formatting. And then I've added some information about the Labour Act, which is in the special notes. And you could use this too. And then here's the spot the hazard activity. I knew I had a picture for it. So here's the messy workstation. When it's to change, make this a safe space to work. So that can be just a general discussion in class, or students can work in pairs, do that. And here's the video. And then the quiz without the answers. And then we go into the second one. And we do a peer activity with just some questions. So watch the video together and they discuss a series of questions so they're in there to have some understanding of how the design principles are going to use in the next topic might go. And then we've got the drawing tools and equipment. What are they? Here's some tools you might use. It was an AI generated image, and in the special notes it mentions pencils, eraser, rulers, colored pencils. It also mentions crayons and notepads, tablets, and then there's a full body crocus ready for an image garment to be put in. And then there's a bit of an overview what each is for. You can see the language is pretty simple. And then Copilot created some images for me, so I could just make a workplace example. I don't even know, I don't think Zambezi Fence exists, which is good. And what each station gets, and away you go. Then an activity to finish it off. They're fairly straight ahead in a scenario. Then some tips. I don't think Sandy exists either. She's created from AI, including the image, and then a quiz to consolidate all the knowledge. Now, this one is fairly knowledge heavy, but when we get to drawing, it is much more practice driven. And so the students actually collect their portfolio as they progress through here, and then will submit some of that work for assessment tasks too. So AI has created some nice image for me for the process. And then drawing a 9 head rule. It's created that. It took a bit of work to get that one. And then we got some video about how to actually draw it, which is pretty good. Then now go ahead and have a go. And that could take a student an hour. And then on the go, they start to add to their design. We've got a bit of information as we go, but it's all very practical, the way that it's written. It's all not so much knowledge, but how you might apply the knowledge that you're kind of getting. And another example I'll just quickly show you to think about in your own, and you can have a look at that. I'll show you where that is in a minute. See, the language is very simple. There's an activity, adding color, couple of video, but they do a worksheet down here somewhere. Sorry about that. Scrolling. Okay, the kind of mood board. I think at the end it is. Not here, this one. So this one's very practical. The production, make a production plan. It just tells you really simply what it is and what it includes. Simple language, not too much, and why we might use it. And then here's an example. To the material used, and then steps to complete it. Now, I don't know anything about this, but Copilot was fantastic helping with this. I had to change the language a little bit. And then eventually, once they're finished, they create a production plan for a garment they choose. And we've got a worksheet in Appendix 2 for them to create. So if we go down to Appendix 2, you can also create these kinds of things. And this is only because it's up in Teams. Once you download it, it'll be fun. They put their own steps, what they're going to do, how much time they need, and then a bit of a check of their plan. So that means I might give it to another peer or their trainer. You can mention that, and they have a look over it. Okay, so that is in the Teams area I've created. It's in day one. The unit is 1686 exemplar unit, and the file is this one here, Learner Guide version 2. You can download that by selecting the dots alongside the image, and you can download it to your computer and have a look. You can do that with anything. You can do the lot if it's better for you to work offline, which is probably good. All right, so that's the exemplar. Have a look at that and the mapping for it as well. And that'll give you a good insight into how you can go about it. And the mapping document I mentioned is just a tool that ensures that we include all parts of the unit, special notes, performance criteria, range of a competency that we address when we're writing the learner guide, and the summative assessments. And if you recall back to the guidance from the regulator, it was that all aspects of the unit must be covered. So we can create topics and subtopics to frame the task themes that are described in the element. And then the mapping ensures validity and total unit coverage in the learner guide and summative assessments as well. And I just showed you the mapping document for the exemplar unit. But my thought would be get in your pairs or get in a group, have a look at the mapping, and then see how it relates to the learner guide, and then see if there's any ideas in there you like, or even suggest things that you would change in that particular unit, particularly from the SMA point of view. So later we'll match instructional design with a clothing production SMA. There are maps for all the units that you will write in the next couple of days. And those maps are in here. Let's look at each unit. You've got unit guide template, and you've got a mapping document for each particular unit. Why have we got two? Maybe it's both. You've got assessment, and then you've got content as well. So there's your topic, there's your subtopic, and that's what you would address in your first document. I'll take you through these. So here I might kind of do this when I do a little section on AI in the next video. Because first I think I'll get you to go through, allocate a unit to each pair, if Robert, if you could do that, and then together unpack your unit, depending on which one you get a bit of a sense of it, have a look at the mapping, and have a look also at the template or the learner guide, which is pretty basic. You can replace all that with what you've got to put in, including an image, and then your topic headings, room for video and examples, how to attribute images. But you have a look at that, was much better than me going through that, I believe. So when we come to writing our learner guide, most of the activities we're going to put in there what we call formative assessment. This is a way that the learner can monitor their own progress and also perhaps get some feedback from either their peers or from the guide itself through those appendixes as they progress to final or summative assessment. So it should, in a sense, prepare the learners for the final assessment. So it's all about developing those skills before they have a go at that. And formal assessment ideas and learner guides you can put in. You might create a quiz, a brief set of questions that allow learners to test their understanding and put the correct answers into the appendix so they're not right in front of them. You might do a worksheet, which I showed you. So a series of written exercises to practice or plan applying skills. You might provide some guided practice where you provide step-by-step instruction where the learner shows you how to perform a task. And the instructor may be a video. So a lot of the videos that I've provided in my learner guide are basically industry instructors, specialists, showing you how to go about doing a task at a good level. Quick checks after you do a task, say like cutting a garment material, or then the learner answers brief questions to review their work. This can be open-ended. Learner can jot down answers, or they can talk to a peer. They can also share work with them or a trainer to get suggestions for improvement. You can provide some guide questions for that. And also self-reflection. So they might compare their work to a model answer or guide to see where they can improve, or how they might use the peer feedback and the trainer feedback to concentrate on one or two things to improve in the next attempt. That's always a really useful and exciting way to kind of do things. All right. So I think now what you can do is the 6 people who make up instructional designers and SMEs can pair up, decide you're going to work with. Then each of you choose a unit from the Teams folder that Robert will add you to, and then have a look at the documents, have a look at the mapping for content, have a look at the unit descriptor, which is in there, to see how the unit is structured. Start to have a bit of a brainstorm about different ideas, how you might approach it. And then when you're ready, as a group, come back and I'll go to the next video around using AI, and then you can start writing. You might also want to look at the exemplar unit, the mapping and the marking guide just to get a bit of a sense of levels and styles. But I'll fill you on how to kind of get to that when we do the co-pilot session. All right, good luck. I'll see you soon.